G'day and welcome back to Stiffy's workshop. Today, got the tractor set up, and once he warms up, once we get the glow on going, start her up and we're going to go out on an adventure. So if you're anything like me, had a lot of rains in the past couple of weeks and it's washed my driveway out. So what we're going to be doing is picking up some gravel and filling it all in, filling in the potholes, because they're starting to get pretty big, and had a river running down the driveway the other day, so best to be proactive with these things. Now normally I just move dirt with a little John Deere, so I'm trying to get my settings right for pulling the dirt out. So on my first attempt here, I've got it in high range, 4-wheel drive and no diff lock. And basically just trying to break up the soil because it had a lot of water on it, so I sort of compacted a fair bit on this gravel. And I kind of use this sort of driving straight into it and then kind of scraping the face of it to try to fill the bucket up. You can see the chickens in the background having a scratch. Admiring the John Deere. And so this is where I was kind of thinking that the high range probably isn't the ticket for this one, so on my next attempt we'll try low range. Just to make use of the transmission a bit more, as opposed to asking the engine to do a whole lot. And we're also running near idle here, so I'll probably run it a bit higher, make some more power and have a bit more control going into the gravel pile. And it takes a few goes to get the bucket mostly full. I've got the 1.2 metre bucket on this one, so a slightly wider one than you can get, and it doesn't always have enough power to sort of, or enough traction rather, just to drive straight into it. So you kind of got to have a few digs at it. It's pretty decent sized bucket for, I think it's I can't remember if it's 17 or 27 horse motor in this one, but either way it's not a massive tractor, so you can't go too hard on it. And we'll just mosey on up to the first pothole. You can see I'm running with it pretty close to the ground, and I've got some counterweight on the back as well, so I've got the carryall and got some weight on that just to keep things balanced. Pick the revs up. So in high range I'm sort of running it around what I'd normally run the PTO at, so kind of 3000 RPM sort of thing, and pretty much full bore. It's a pretty smooth bit of driveway, and I've got the tractor pretty stable, and having all that weight relatively close to the ground, it's pretty stable. If you're overloading it a bit, you wouldn't go nearly as fast, you'd be pretty cautious. Or if you're on different soil, this is a fairly manicured sort of driveway. And so some of the deeper potholes, they're getting about 20 centimetres deep, so pretty chunky old potholes. So I don't know if this is how the Romans would repair them, but what I think I'll do is I'll dump this lot on today, so dump all this gravel, and you can see one coming up here, that's one of the bigger ones, it's pretty deep. you know, if you catch a motorbike tyre and that, you're not going to have a good time. So, and then all I'm doing is kind of backfilling, so just letting a little bit out and kind of trying to get it mostly over the hole, so I don't have to push it around too much. Kind of just drop it where it needs to be, and just minimise the manual loading aspect of this bit of road repair. Obviously, wouldn't get a job with the Romans fixing their roads, but for the purposes of, you know, keeping this driveway nice and accessible. So you can see there I've mainly just filled in the majority of the hole, and we'll scrape that around a bit later. Still got some in the bucket, so I'll go up to the next lot. Try to minimise my trips by, you know, doing a few with one bucket load. Just kind of gently letting out, you know, just the, you know, enough but not a ridiculous amount of gravel. You know, you don't want to just be dumping stuff there for no reason. You know, you have to pick it up and move it, sort of thing, and you don't want to have to, you know, come back and do another load. So it's sort of, you know, you're walking that fine line, but it's not too precise. It's just a country driveway, so really, as long as the holes are filled and, you know, it's not washing away, that's kind of the ticket. It kind of runs downhill, the driveway, so I actually had a river running through the wheel ruts, which was washing away a lot of the less compact material. And yeah, it's been pulling in the potholes, which really doesn't help things. And you've got the cars hammering it all the time. You know, if you've got, you know, people doing deliveries and stuff and they don't know the potholes are there, or it's dark and they don't see them, it's really not great for the setup. And all I'm doing now is I'm just dragging back with the bucket just to spread the gravel and sort of push it into the hole a little bit as well. And then as I go up and do the further ones, I'll run over it with the tractor wheels as well. So you can see there, I've just dragged it over a bit. It's nothing too precise, but just to get it spread out a bit more. Ideally, you get a grader down and that would profile the driveway as well, so the water runs off it, but it's going to be a while before you can get one of those, so this is a bit of a stopgap. And, you know, like I haven't had a grader in over a year, so, you know, a couple of potholes here and there, it's pretty reasonable. The same deal here, so just got like the lip of the front lip of the digger and just dragging that gravel around just to sort of spread it out a bit. And, you know, try to push it into the hole a bit more. But again, it'll get pushed around and the holes will reappear, but then I'll just dump more in it. So, you know, I might have to do it 3 or 4 times over the next couple of weeks, but then it'll sort itself out. And so I have another dig at this one. Just a little bit raised, you know, you don't want to make extra potholes just because you haven't, you know, smoothed out the surface well enough. And as cars run over this as well, it's going to push it in better, so. This is the natural sort of dirt colour of the area, so, you know, that's kind of just how it'll be once you dig down further. I almost prefer a dark one. I think it's better for animals having the dark sort of surface as they show up less. Like most of the Australian animals are kind of dark in colour, whereas, you know, they show up on the white, and, you know, it's not good for predators, or not good for the animals, because, you know, the predators can see them real easily, and you kind of, even though it's a dirt road and, you know, animals can obviously cross it, it's actually kind of like a no man's land type of setup. So, you know, it's kind of like a mad dash between the long grass for, you know, for native grassland animals, which is no good for them. You know, they're doing it hard enough with habitat and stuff, so my preference would be a darker coloured driveway, just so they show up a bit less. Don't know how it goes for snakes, like whether they like the dark warm stuff. Obviously don't want those getting run over, or, you know, been hanging around too much, but, you know, I guess lizards are cool, so we'll take it. Alright, so I'm mosey on back and we'll grab another load of gravel. give her a bit of welly. Like I said, running it at sort of like that 3000 RPM, back into the two-wheel drive for the U-turns, and you know, for the transport stuff, back into two-wheel drive, because you're definitely not running out of traction on this stuff. And you have much better turning circle on these tractors if you run them in two-wheel drive. They push around a lot when you've got the full drive mode on. So if you're doing tight corners, they really don't like it, and seems to put a bit of strain on it. So yeah, much easier to do sharp corners when you're in two-wheel drive. And then this one's got under your sort of left foot area, you can stamp on a lever, and that puts on your diff lock. So this time around, I'm going to try I'm going to switch into low range and four-wheel drive, and we'll sort of try on and off with the diff locks. Like, we don't want to dig too much of a hole, so probably not a bad thing to have a few stabs at it, but definitely the low range just to look after the motor more than anything. So I'll line her up, switch her back into low range, drop her down, give it a go. And this dirt stuff's pretty heavy. You know, it's not really a dedicated digger. Like, you know, a lot of people tell you tractors aren't particularly good at much. They can pull stuff. They got decent traction. They can kind of go places, sort of, but they're kind of not particularly great at anything. So they're just handy, do it all kind of things. And if you only want to have one, you know, piece of plant on a farm, it's, you know, I guess it's kind of the default. Got this one mainly for diggers. The digger's pretty handy, to be honest. Moving soil around's pretty handy. We do a fair bit of that at the moment. And the slasher and carrying stuff around for the animals, moving water, should become less of a problem once we get the dam set up all good. Had a few tradies down doing plumbing stuff here and there, and a couple of those guys have got bogged, so it's been good pulling people out, but that'll become less of a problem once everything's kind of set up. Righto, so back into high range, and you know, just making sure the load's all sort of stabilised and nothing's shifting around or unstable, because unless you're getting out and having a look every 10 seconds, you don't really know how much you've got in your bucket or how stable it is. So if it starts shifting around, or you've got a bit of a heavier load because it's full of water or something, you want to be pretty confident you haven't unstabilised anything. So pretty easy, and then, you know, once you get a feel of how everything's running, you can wind it back up. So, you know, back up from idle, back up to me 3000 RPM. Pretty cool day, so no worries about overheating or anything like that. This one's also got all the rollover protection stuff, got your seatbelt on, all the sensible stuff when you're, you know, using the lift and all that. Pays to be cautious. So just backing off, you know, don't want to push down too deep and find out I've got a soft spot, so just running over that. Probably a bit bouncier than I will. I'm probably going to slow down a bit more there. And I'll come back to this one. So we had half a go here, but there's a pretty big pothole, so we'll drop a bit more off. Then we kind of had a bit of washboarding going on, so run a bit more over there. Again, just being cautious, because it's easier to have to go again than have to pick it up, sort of thing. So Just being cautious as to how much I drop off. And then going around it until we're ready to spread it all out. There's a bit of washboarding on the left hand side, but I'm mainly just looking at potholes today, so depending on how this this goes, we'll do the same for the washboarding. That's a job for another day. Focus on the main stuff and make sure we get the system right, and then repeat. And then I've got a bit of an exposed culvert up the top here, up the top of the driveway. There's like culvert that runs under the driveway, and that's been exposed for a while. You know, people doing skiddies, doing U-turns and stuff in the driveway, so get loads on that, loads of gravel on that, just to keep that covered up, because like the gravel's pretty abrasion resistant, but the concrete culvert really isn't, and it was already starting to crack a bit, so let's get it all filled in. This stuff it almost sets like concrete, this gravel. It works really well. So just dump heaps on there, point it to the sky, put the bucket right down, get it all out, and we'll just run it. Same deal as before, so drag the tip of the bucket, you know, just gently. You know, you're trying to get a spread kind of thing. You know, you're not trying to cut the toast. You're just trying to spread the Vegemite. You just want that even kind of thing. You don't want to have, you know, big lips, so it's going to blow around and be a nuisance. Just want it to kind of, you know, mould in with the rest of it. So I switch back into two-wheel drive, chuck a Yui. And then I remembered that we've got to be reversed for the rest of it. So it's pretty hard to turn around in the driveway comparatively, so just run it backwards. Obviously not running full bore in reverse, because you're not quite as stable as you are going forward, so run her a bit slower, not in a race, no rush. Righto, so there's that last little bit, or next little bit rather. And this time around I'm doing the rearward section first, so that sort of smooths out, otherwise it kind of upsets the tractor when you're bumping over the other stuff and you don't have a consistent height for the front of the bucket. So I was finding doing the backmost section for the smoothing first resulted in it was faster. Faster for a more consistent result. Otherwise we end up like what's that movie? Lightning McQueen Cars, when he tries to save time putting his road in, and it was all wonky because he was trying to do it fast and didn't really have the technique right. This is my attempt at a technique. We'll see how it goes in a couple of weeks. We'll see how rubbish my road effort is. See if it matches up to McQueen. Don't know if I got high hopes, but I'm hopeful. And I've got a bit of a lip in the centre of the road there, so I'll just smudge that down as well. Don't know if it matters, but having big logs will lose gravel. Like if there's multiple cars coming at the same time, you don't want to flick stones up unnecessarily. Just having to push down seems like a good idea to me. There you go. So that section's all kind of in place. There we go. There you go, run over, make sure there's no real loose spots. bit of a high edge on that side, so I'll just run over that quickly. You know, just gentle like. Kind of smooth it down a bit. And we'll bring it on home. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this has inspired you to have a crack at some driveway maintenance with your John Deere. Obviously this is a private road, so don't be doing this on your city roads because you might upset someone if they need to redo your work. But in the case of this, it's private road, so it sort of be my problem if we need to get someone else to have a proper go at it. But yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, hopefully get some more John Deere goodness for you. Beauty.